Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do the video editorial for the problem C and the problem D from the educational Codeforces round 95. That is the today's educational round. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. So in the problem C, Mortal Kombat Tower, there are two people, namely you and your friend, and you're trying to play this game. And in this game, there are n bosses. Okay, now what you want to do is there are multiple moves, and in each move, you or your friend can kill one or two bosses. Okay, so now the thing is that the moves will alternate. So first it will be the first move will be your friends. So first there will be your friends move, then it will be your move, then friends move, then your move, and so on. So what you want to do is you want to kill each of the bosses, and there are n bosses in total. So here the bosses are of two types. So if the like we're given an array A, so if AI is 0, then the ith boss is weak, and if the actually it's easy, and if AI is 1, then the ith boss is hard. So the bosses can be easy or hard. So the thing is that you can kill both easy and hard bosses without any trouble. But your friend isn't such a good player, so he can't kill hard bosses, and he'll have to use some special currency called skip points. So like he can use one skip point to kill one hard boss, and you can kill the hard bosses even without the skip points. So what you want to do in this question is that you want to spend minimum number of skip points, as minimum as possible, and you want to kill all of the bosses that are present. And you move in a sequence, like first you'll kill the first boss, then second boss. You can't rearrange, and in one move you can kill one or two, and the friend also can kill one or two, and the friend will move first. So if you try to examine this problem within a few minutes, you'll just realize that greedy strategies would definitely fail here, and the only way to solve this is to use dynamic programming. So let me explain the dynamic programming approach along with the example. So let's say I have the input array. Let's say I have this. I'm just randomly writing an array. So I have something like this. Okay. Now let's say I'm at an arbitrary step in the game. So uh, at this current step, I've killed up till here. So I've killed all of these bosses. And let's say the last move was a friend's move. So the friend moved the last move, and I was at this point. So what all could the friend have done in the last move? So let's try to examine that. So what he could have done was he could have either just killed this one, or he could have killed both of these. So these are the only two possible moves that the friend could have done, because obviously he cannot kill 3, and obviously cannot kill 0. So these are the two moves that he could have done in the last move. So how can we know which one is more advantageous? So to decide which one is more advantageous, obviously we are using dynamic programming. So we need to have the answer till here or till here pre-calculated. And the thing is that since the moves are alternating, so if this was the friend's move, then up till here the last move must have been your move, because the moves are alternating. So in short, what's happening is that uh, the state of the dynamic programming depends on two main points, and those points are, so first of all, it's the index. Index is the point till where we have killed all till where we have killed all of the bosses. So like from index 0 to index, we've killed all of these bosses. Apart from that, there's another important part that must be included in the state, and that is the player who moved the last move. So index comma player is important. and here the player is the player who like who moved in the during the last move. So these two are the important things. So what I will store is, let's say, in DP of id comma p, which is the same thing, id index comma player. So in DP of id comma p, what I will store is, I'll store the number of skip tokens I had to use if I have killed up till id bosses, and the last move was the pth players. So I'll just number them somehow. Let's say 0 means the friend and 1 means you. So something like that. This is my arbitrary numbering. You can number any way you want, or you can even use the strings like friend and you if you make a DP of map and so on. So what will be the base conditions? So base condition will be like, let's say I want the DP of 0 comma 0. So DP of 0 comma 0 is that you killed the first boss and the last move was the friend's move. So this will be equal to A0. What this means is that if the first boss was an easy boss, then you had to use no skip tokens at all, and if it was a hard boss, then you had to use one skip token. Let's consider DP of 0 1. Now what does DP of 0 1 mean? DP of 0 1 means that you have killed one boss and the last move was your move. But this is impossible because the first move, because definitely only one move has happened and the first move must be your friend's move. So this is an impossible situation. So since we're trying to minimize something to represent an impossible situation, I'll just write infinity here. Infinity means it won't happen, like how we say parallel lines meet at infinity. So they're not actually meeting there, they're just never meeting. So for the purpose of this question, we can just consider any big number that's bigger than the possible answer as infinity. So I used 10 to power 18 as infinity, and these are the base conditions. Apart from that, I need transitions. So instead of writing it here, I'll just show the code, and it's kind of self-explanatory how the transitions will work. So here's my accepted code. It was accepted during the contest. Now what I did was, I first of all took the inputs in the array. Then here I have explained what my DP means. So like in DP of I comma t, I have stored the uncertainty index I, and t was the last player's turn, and 0 means the friend and 1 means you. Now so in the base conditions, as I said, DP of 0 0 is A0 and DP of 0 1 is infinity. Then for the DP of 1 also, I have written the answer, which is actually simple. If you have killed till the first boss, till the first index of boss, and the last move was your move, then definitely you killed one and your friend killed one. So that's why I have written A0 here. And if the last move was the friend's move, then definitely your friend has killed both the bosses. Now I'll talk about the transitions. So we need to store the answers for DPI0 and DPI1. So the answer for DPI0 is just the minimum of, basically I'll explain what this means. So this means that till I minus 1 you killed, and then the ith boss your friend killed. And here it means that till I minus 2 you killed, and your friend killed the last two bosses. And then this is for your turn. If you moved last, like the last move was yours, then it's just the minimum of your friend killed till the last, or your friend killed till the second last. And we're not adding a here because obviously you can kill the hard bosses without spending any skip tokens. So the final answer is just the minimum of uh, you're at the last index, and the last move was done either by you or by your friend. So the answer is the minimum of these. And there was a base actually. it was a corner case. If there is only one, I mean, if there's only one boss, then obviously obviously your friend will kill it. So this was the editorial for problem C. Now let's move to problem D. And it's actually kind of surprising that there were very less submissions for the problem D, even though it wasn't a hard problem. Excuse me, let me just plug in my laptop to a charger. Okay, so it wasn't very hard. Still, the number of submissions were very less, and it was a little surprising to me. So let's try to examine what this problem is first of all. So Vova has decided to clean his room, and there are n piles of trash, and they are arranged on a number line, and they all have different coordinates. Now, the total cleanup process is defined as a process in which you collect all piles in no more than two different places. And to achieve this, what you can do is during one move, you can choose some index x and move all the piles from x to either x plus 1 or x minus 1. So, this is the important thing, that in a single move, you can move all the piles that are present at a point to some other point. Now, yeah, he cannot choose how many piles he will move, because definitely he has to move all of the piles. And to be honest, it will never be advantageous to move few of the piles in a move. Even if this wasn't given, even if you were allowed to just move only like a smaller number of piles from the amount of piles present at a point, then also it would never be advantageous to do that. But that doesn't matter here, because it's not what's given in the question. Now there are two types of queries, and in queries, what you can do is you can either remove a pile of trash, or you can add a pile of trash. So, like, and after each query, you have to answer again, and the answer is the minimum number of moves that are required to do a cleanup. So these queries are actually independent. So what's happening is that you're not actually performing the total cleanup process. You're just um, like you're just anticipating how many moves it will require to perform a total cleanup process, but you're not actually performing the process. So all of the queries are actually kind of independent, but not exactly independent, because like if a pile of trash was added in the last query, it's still present here, but you haven't performed the cleanup process yet. So like the positions in the last queries are retained. So that's one thing. Now what's happening is that yeah, that's all. For each query, you want to answer the minimum number of moves that will be needed to perform a total cleanup process. Now let's see how we can do this. So let's assume we have a lot of different piles of trash at different points, and we have to collect them in at most two different points. So how will we choose the two different points? So actually the thing is that uh, this was just observation based. What we can do is, let's say, uh, so I'll definitely partition this somewhere, right? Let's say I partition this here. So by partitioning, I mean that uh, some of the piles will be to the left of this line, this imaginary line that I drew, and some will be to the right of this. Now the idea is that in any optimal solution, what I will do is I'll put all of the left piles in one point, some point. I haven't decided which point yet, but in some point I'll put all of the left piles in a single point, and I'll put all of the right points in a single point. All the trashes on the right side, I'll put them on a single point, and on the left side, those also I'll put on a single point. But why is this correct? So it's correct because it would never be advantageous to just put this pile here and this pile here. it's pointless. I mean, it just looks stupid, even intuitively. So definitely there will be some line of partition, and to the left of which we'll put all of the trashes in one point, and to the right of which we'll put all of the trashes in one point. So let's say I have already, like, let's say I have a fairy and she told me the correct partition point. She told me, okay, this will be the right partition point. So after that, how will I calculate the answer? So what I want to do is, let's say I have all of these trashes and I have all of these trashes. So I want to collect all of these in one place, and I have to collect all of these in one place. So how will I do this? So the thing we have to notice here is that even if these weren't there, like even if these didn't exist, still I had to move from here to here. So this is the minimum amount of moves required. Like on the left side, these uh, if I have these four elements, then the greatest of them and the smallest of them, the difference between these two trashes, these two piles of trashes, the difference between these two will definitely be smaller, equal to the answer, because we cannot just have an optimal answer in which we can collect all the piles in uh, less than these many moves, because even if these weren't there, still we'd require this much moves. Now since these are all here, let's see what we can do. So if we start from this point, we can just keep pushing everything till here. So what I'm saying is, first I have this trash, I'll move it here. So I'll have 2 points here, then I'll move them here. So I'll have two here, then I'll move them here, then I'll have three at one point. And this way I can collect all of these trashes in just one point. And how many moves did it require? It required the difference between these two. So the difference between the maximum and the minimum, this is the lower bound as well as the upper bound. So since it is both the lower and the upper bound, it definitely has to be the correct value. So this way I have proved that if I have partitioned at a line, then on both the sides, what I can do is just subtract the maximum and the minimum, and here also I'll just subtract the maximum and the minimum, and the sum of these two is the total number of required moves. So let's try to just let's try to simplify it even further. So what's happening is that uh, we don't know the correct partition point, like we don't know whether we have to partition it here or here or here. So what will happen is that if we partition it at an arbitrary point, we'll first uh, subtract we'll subtract this from this, and we'll subtract this from this. Okay, so let me just name them. Let's say if I call them A, B, C and D, so my answer is B minus C plus B minus A, right? And we want the minimum of this for each partition point. Now if I regroup this in a beautiful way, it's the same as B minus A minus C minus B. Now let's see the physical interpretation of this expression. So I'll just write it again. B minus A minus C minus B. I want the maximum value of this for each partition. So D minus A won't depend on where I'm partitioning it, because it's just the maximum minus the minimum element. So this is fixed. Now we just need the maximum of this, because If this is maximum, then this whole will be minimum. What this means is that now we know where to partition. Like I want to partition in such a place that the difference between these two elements is the maximum. So I need the maximum difference between two adjacent elements of a set. So this is the whole question. Like I have a set and I want like I have a set. I have queries in which I can add or remove the elements, and at each step I need the difference between the maximum difference between two adjacent elements. So how can we do this? To do this, it's actually, I think it's pretty standard. Sometimes it is even asked in interviews or something. So I'll just maintain a set. This is the set of the available elements or the piles of trashes that are there, that are present. Apart from that, I'll keep another multi-set. Now this multi-set, what it's storing is that it's storing all the differences between adjacent elements. So it's storing all differences between adjacent elements. So this is being stored in this multiset, and using this I can get the maximum difference between two adjacent elements, because in a multiset obviously the elements are sorted and I just need the last element of the multiset. So how can I maintain this multiset? It's actually pretty easy. What I will do is, let's say my set S looks like this. Let's say it looks like actually I'll take some far away values, something like this. So let's say my set looks like this. Now I have to add an element. Let's say I have to add 6. So I'll add 6 here, right? Because the set is all obviously sorted. So if I add 6 here, what kind of changes must happen to my multiset? So first let's see what the multisets should look like before adding 6. So it should have all the adjacent differences, like it should have 4, 5 minus 1 4, then it should have 7 minus 5 2, and it should have 12 minus 7 5. So it should have all these values. But when I put 6 in here, then this 2 should get removed, because now 5 and 7 are no longer adjacent, and 2 ones should be included, right? Because 5 and 6, between 5 and 6 the difference is 1, and between 6 and 7 also the difference is 1. So before inserting an element into this set, like I know, like let's say I have to insert 6, so I know I'll have to insert it here. So first I'll remove this difference from my multiset. After that I'll insert 6 here. Then I'll insert this difference into my multiset. Then I'll insert this difference into my multiset. And this is the whole idea. And in this way, I can maintain the multiset. Same goes for removing. Like for example, I have to remove 7. So if I remove 7, what I will do is, first I'll remove this 2 from my multiset, then I'll remove this 5 from my multiset, and then I'll add or insert this 7 to my multiset. So that's the whole idea, and I'll just show my code, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So okay, yeah, so I made the two sets, the set S and the set Z that I described earlier, and the set Z is a multi-set, and it is sorted according to it's sorted in the reverse order, because I always need the greatest element, so that's why I sorted it in the reverse order. Now first of all, in the beginning I inserted all of the differences of adjacent elements into the multi-set. Then at each query what I'm doing is that, like if the query is remove, so first I'm removing the element from the set, then I'm taking the upper bound, and like I'm removing like these are the two things that I'm removing that I explained earlier, like the difference between the element that's removed and the next greater element and the next smaller element. So these two things I removed, and after that I inserted the difference between the remaining two elements after this is removed, like the both the adjacent elements. And you must be wondering why are there so many ifs here, and it's because I'm just checking the removed element is not the last or the first element, because if it's the last element, obviously it wasn't a part of any adjacent difference. And similarly, I did a similar thing for inserting the element as well. First, I took the upper bound, then I inserted the difference between the upper bound and the current element, and same I did for the immediately smaller element, and so on. So yeah, it was just implementation, a little bit about data structures and implementation, and nothing else. So and apart from that, the contest actually got ruined because the problem A was a little wrong. I mean, I myself spent around 10 minutes figuring out what's like why my answer is wrong, but then they corrected the test cases and it turned out that my answer was right. And a cool thing happened today. I'll just show it for a few seconds. So in between the contest, I was seeing the um, standings, and like for a few seconds, I think for 10 minutes or something, like Amnik and I were at the same rank. So like the exact same rank, exact same number of questions solved and exact same penalty, and like I felt very good because of that. It's like so yeah, that like I felt like telling this on in this video. And so that's that for this video, and keep watching my channel, subscribe for more content, and thank you.